All right, excuse my cat in the back. Hi, Belle. All right, we are going to talk about the muscular system. So an introduction to the muscular system, and we're going to cover functions as one of the things, okay? So here are the objectives. Pause and peruse it. Okay, so let's get right to it. So 30 to 40% of our body mass is muscles. We have over 650 muscles. And although people tend to think of skeletal muscles, our muscular system is more than just that. So we will get to it. What are some functions of the muscular system? Let's talk about it. Movement. Well, that's probably the one people think of most. So some of the movement is voluntary. It's under our conscious control. So those pull on bones, typically. Some is involuntary. It's not under our conscious control. And thank goodness, it moves things like food and blood. It contracts the uterus to give birth. Our muscular system serves to maintain posture and balance. Keeps us upright. It helps maintain body temperature. It generates body heat. So contractions of those skeletal muscles actually generate heat, and it provides about 85% of the warmth in our body. It provides some shape to our body, right? So our muscles are in between our skin and our bones, so it helps to give some shape. Protection. So we have a layer of muscle underneath skin and connective tissue that serves to protect a lot of our internal organs. Some of our internal organs are not protected at all by bones. Many of those are pictured in this illustration, so muscles do provide some protection. It guards the entrances and exits to our body. So obviously we can close our mouth and affect what comes in and what comes out. We blink to keep things out of our eyes, but we also have sphincters that are skeletal muscles that provide voluntary control of defecation and urination. There is a set of sphincters that are internal, that are involuntary, controlled by smooth muscle. But then there's a sphincter that is made of skeletal muscle that is voluntary. So we are able to control when we urinate and when we defecate. Muscles also stabilize joints because nearly all muscles attach to bones. They're able to hold those bones in place within the joints, and especially because different muscles are going to have different points of attachment, so the joints are going to get stabilized from many directions. Okay, what are the three main types of muscles? This you should already know. We did talk about it before. So we have skeletal muscle that attaches to bones with tendons. That tendon, remember, is strong, tough connective tissue. Skeletal muscles produce heat. They help us maintain posture. They protect our internal organs. Obviously, they help with movement, and they are striated or striped, which you can see here. Cardiac muscle is only found in the heart. It requires a constant supply of oxygen. So those cardiac muscle cells will begin to die 30 seconds, in about 30 seconds after being deprived of oxygen. And they are striated also, and they have intercalated discs. So right here, this that you see here, this that you see here, it is a connection between those cardiac muscle cells that allows a seamless, united contraction. And then we have smooth muscle. It lines blood vessels, and it also lines organs like our intestines and the uterus. There are no striations, no stripes. It can contract for a long time, which is good because digestion is a slow process. All muscles are made of bundles called fibers, and those fibers receive signals from the nervous system. So we will get to that. So what are the two types of muscle fibers? Well, fast twitch and slow twitch. What does that mean? Well, fast twitch. Fast twitch, bam, react instantly. They're ideal for quick bursts, like sprinters. But they're quickly tired out. They use less oxygen. They mostly perform anaerobic. So they're less vascular. So they have less blood flow. So when we look at a cross-section of muscle tissue, those lighter colored fibers, they are fast twitch. And it's useful for sprinting and jumping. So you can see this is a sprinter. So you can see a lot of light colored fast twitch fibers. What about slow twitch? Well, they react more slowly, ideal for endurance, like a marathon runner. They can contract for long periods of time, so sustained contractions, as well as repeated contractions. But they require a lot of oxygen. So they're very vascular, so they're darker in color due to that increased blood supply. So these are useful for posture, running a marathon, things that require endurance. So you can see when we're talking about a marathon runner, we have a lot of slow twitch, dark fibers. But when we're talking about a sprinter, we have much more fast twitch fibers. All right, what are the rules for skeletal muscle activity? Okay, here's an overview of the rules, but we're going to go through them kind of simplified and one by one. So rule 1, with few exceptions, muscles cross a joint, at least one joint. Rule 2, usually most of the muscle lies proximal to the joint crossed. So you can see here's the joint that's crossed, and you can see the belly, that's what we call the belly of the muscle. Most of it is close to the joint that was crossed. Rule 3, it has at least 2 bone attachments. The origin, where it starts, immovable. Insertion is movable. So the origin is the stabilizer. That's the way it was. It stays. And then the insertion, we can move. Okay, this is important to remember. Muscles cannot push. So when we do a push-up, it's because other muscles are pulling. When we push against a wall, it's because other muscles are pulling. So muscles contract and they relax, but they can only pull. They can't push. We can only push because other muscles are pulling. And the last rule, during contraction, the insertion moves toward the origin. And that should make sense. Remember, the origin is the one that is stable, stays where it is. And then the insertion is going to move toward it. What are the 3 main types of muscle contractions? So we have different types of contractions. What are they? Well, we have concentric. Concentric, the muscle fibers shorten. So, and it works with the opposite force, which is eccentric, which we'll see in a second. So in a concentric contraction, the muscle fibers shorten. In an eccentric contraction, the muscle fibers lengthen. Okay, and so concentric and eccentric work together. Like this. So concentric, the muscles shorten, contract, collapse. Concentric. In eccentric, the muscle fibers lengthen. They get longer. Well, here's a hint. Elongate, eccentric. Elongate, get longer, eccentric. Collapse, concentric. Collapse, concentric. Elongate, eccentric. Collapse, concentric. Elongate, eccentric. All right, then there's isometric. In isometric, the muscle fibers are contracting, but they're not changing length. So you can see right here, you can see this contraction that's happening in this muscle, but it is not changing length. It is not lengthening, it is not shortening. Okay, so these are good for creating stabilizing forces, like if we're leaning or gripping or for our posture. Okay, so the muscles are contracting, but they're not changing length. Isometric. All right, what are the four main types of muscle interactions? And these are kind of related to what we just talked about. So we have agonist versus antagonist. So agonist is the prime mover, so they're doing the moving. The antagonist is resisting the movement of the prime mover. So when we're contracting our arm like this, bicep is agonist, tricep, antagonist. When we do extension, tricep, agonist, bicep, antagonist. So agonist is the prime mover doing the moving, antagonist is resisting. Okay, so agonist and antagonist. So if the agonist is doing the contracting right here, it is concentric, it is shortening. The antagonist would be lengthening, elongating, so it would be eccentric. All right, synergists. Synergists are helpers. So a synergist is a muscle that helps the prime mover. It contracts at the same time. It's like, let me help you, buddy. All right, synergist. Now a fixator is a special type of synergist. And what it does is it just stabilizes the origin of a prime mover. So that's more of an isometric contraction. It's just stabilizing. The synergist is another concentric contraction as an assistant for the prime mover or agonist. Okay, so again, here you can see an overview of the relationship. We have synergists that are helpers doing other concentric contractions, the agonist doing a concentric contraction, the antagonist doing an eccentric contraction, and then we have a special synergist called the fixator, which is doing an isometric contraction. All right, so what muscle provides the major force for a contraction? That's the agonist. And remember, it's a concentric contraction. What muscle stabilizes the origin? The fixator. Remember, that's an isometric contraction. What muscle helps the movement, usually by adding force? That's the synergist, another concentric contraction. Okay, what muscle opposes the movement of the prime mover, the agonist? Well, that is the antagonist, and that is an eccentric. Remember the elongating, the lengthening. And there you have it, the muscular system, introduction and functions. I hope you learned something new today.